Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox. Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
I love featuring entrepreneurs on this show and people who are making a difference. Joining us today, Jared Pope. He's with WorkShield. It's a brilliant company that really changes how HR is handled in this country. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so tell everybody about WorkShield.
Well, so in short, WorkShield really helps employers address and solve the Me Too movement, the discrimination, Title VII. And really, if you think about how employers handle it today, it's just not efficient, it's not effective, but more importantly, it doesn't allow employees' voices to be heard. And so WorkShield was really created to help employers solve this problem by not only giving employees a voice to be heard, but also making sure the employer, from their perspective, they do the right thing.
Well, one of the things I saw in one of your interviews that struck me is that often the person who's in charge of HR might be the harasser.
Yeah, that's right. And so, or a manager or a supervisor.
Right.
And so 98% of the companies out there have some form of policy that says, hey, if you've been harassed or discriminated against, go to HR, go to your manager, go to your supervisor. And then people wonder why 75% of these issues just don't get reported.
Yes.
Well, because generally you're asking them to go report it to the person that's actually doing the bad behavior.
Yes, and it seems like it's been all over the news in the past few years. And
Yeah.
Matt Lauer comes to mind.
Yeah.
That was certainly a wake-up call, I think, for employers all over the country that they need to get a handle on these things.
Yeah, it's not only a wake-up call, it's a reality that, I'll put it this way. Most companies, it's a microcosm of what's going on in society. So a culture or an environment that's in a workplace, it's really reflective of what's going on around us and society as a whole. And so whether it's Harvey Weinstein or Matt Lauer, or now with George Floyd and the BLM movement, even the LGBTQ cases from the Supreme Court, those are all impactful into today's society as a company and what's going on in the workplace. And so really, the EOC even said it best, and they're the kind of governmental arm that helps manage this, but they said, look, training doesn't necessarily work. You need something bigger and better, and you really, at the end of the day, we all want to be heard. If you have an issue, Jeff, or I have an issue, or our wives, or whoever has an issue, at the end of the day, they just want to be heard.
Yes.
And if you give them a platform to be heard, but then also make sure they know that, hey, it's going to be taken care of, you've handled 90% of the battle.
So when you're engaged with a company, how does it work? The employees all have a hotline that they call?
So it's similar to a hotline. So we do have a call center. It's 24/7, 365. But they also have their own personal ID card. And it's whether in your Apple Wallet or Google Pay wallet. What we're finding is most employees, let's take, for example, let's say an employee of ours got harassed or discriminated against. They're not going to report it on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Generally speaking, they're going to report it on a Thursday night or a Friday night or a Sunday or a Monday, but it's usually outside of the workplace. And so they're either going to call a call center and say, hey, here's the issue, or they're going to go online to their own portal that's custom for each employer and say, hey, here's the issue, here's what happened. But more importantly, they realize when they do it, it's not the company that's doing the investigation. It's actually WorkShield. And we're going to make sure they're heard. But then we take that information, go back to the employer and say, look, here are the facts, here are the issues, here's the resolution that you need to do. And as long as they do that, their risk is completely mitigated, the employee's voice is heard, and the issue is actually resolved. And the great thing about it is, Jeff, is We actually handle this in less than 5 days.
Wow. And you're saving the companies a fortune. I mean, if they end up getting sued, that can be a lengthy ordeal and very expensive.
That's right. So our ROI generally is about 10 to 1. But we've had clients that, look, before WorkShield went in, they were spending over $400,000 on these types of issues. And then they come in with us, and their ROI, I think, was like 42 to 1.
Wow.
So it's
That's amazing.
Pretty good.
Let's talk about COVID-19, because
Sure.
that opens up a whole another set of issues for bosses. Talk about reopening America and the risk that some employers face keeping their employees safe.
Well, first and foremost, this is definitely an issue that every employer is trying to grapple with and figure out, hey, with COVID-19, am I going to bring my employees back to work? Am I going to keep them at home? Or is there going to be some combination? And so with COVID, employers are really sitting there today saying, hey, how do we keep them safe? How do we make sure that someone who may have COVID doesn't come in and infect everybody else? But then more importantly, what if you're a parent? And with the fall coming on with school, and how are we going to address this parental discrimination? Or if an employee says, hey, maybe I'm high risk, can I have an accommodation so I don't have to come into the office? And you as an employer, you're sitting there going, oh, wait, I don't want you working from home. But yet you just made that accommodation for the past 4 months, for example.
And I encourage you to follow Jared on social media, because if you go out to the internet, you can find him being interviewed all over the country. We've got a little clip that we're going to run right now. Okay. You often are called to be on people's podcasts and give advice. Yeah. That's a passion for you, isn't it?
Well, I like spreading the good word, and really helping people out. I mean, that's my passion. And look, at the end of the day, no one deserves to be harassed. No one deserves to be discriminated against. And their voices need to be heard. And if I can find a way in my small piece to make sure that not only the voice is heard, but that the employers are actually doing the right thing, I think at the end of the day, we're all going to win together.
Yes. And employers can no longer be an ostrich with their head in the sand.
No.
I mean, these issues aren't going away.
That's right. That's right. They're not. More importantly, what's interesting, so let's take the McDonald's case that, Time's Up came in. It's a $500 million class action. And if you look back at the history, a lot of the times it happens where, hey, they reported it to a manager, they went to a supervisor, and then that manager or supervisor said, oh, let me sweep it under the rug. Or they tried to turn their head and not think about it. And then look, if you don't address a problem, it's just like a crack in the windshield. If you don't address it right away, it's just going to get bigger.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to put your website up so people can get in touch with you. WorkShield.com is the website. Jared Pope, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.